We're going to continue to monitor President Trump's day one agenda and the impact of that agenda. The president promised immediate action on immigration during his inaugural address.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
And following that address, Trump signs executive orders enacting those policies. Trump designated cartels as terrorist organizations and revoked birthright citizenship to the children of undocumented immigrants. Joining us now to discuss some of that policy and how it could impact the economy, we've got Wendy Edelberg, the Hamilton Project Director and Brookings Institution Senior Fellow. Wendy, great to have you. I just mentioned one of those day one policies, birthright citizenship, which is protected under the Constitution. How are you thinking about the tangible impact, the real world impact and likelihood of these policies coming to fruition?
Well, some of them, like the one you just mentioned, are clearly going to be adjudicated in the courts. And so it's unlikely that they will be implemented exactly as Trump wishes. But largely speaking, he's doing what he promised he would do. He is taking steps to harden the border. He is taking steps to deport hundreds of thousands of people from the interior of the country. He talks about wanting to deport millions of people, but just logistically, he's going to be constrained on that front. So in terms of hardening the border and promising deportations, this is what I expected to see from Trump on day one.
Wendy, what does the GDP loss then potentially look like from these mass deportations?
So colleagues and I estimated the GDP effects through two channels. One, what would happen to the reduction in labor supply, just from less immigration, but also what would happen from less consumer spending. Immigrants spend money in our country. And if you add up both of those effects and you think about, a realistic but dire scenario for immigration in 2025, that reduces GDP growth by almost a 0.5 percentage point.
I also want to get your reaction, Wendy, to something President Trump said about legal immigration specifically. Take a listen.
I'm fine with legal immigration. I like it. We need people, and I'm absolutely fine with it. We want to have it. We need it because we're going to have a lot of companies coming in to avoid tariffs. We have to have legal immigration.
So, Wendy, if you take that at its word, there's an idea there from Trump that legal immigration will be a backfill to any jobs lost due to deportations, for example. And we spoke with a guest earlier on our show who said that could be good for U.S. economic growth. How are you thinking about that comment from Trump?
I think what's more informative is to look at what Trump did in his first administration. And what he did there is he actually reduced pathways, made narrowed pathways for legal immigration. So he may say that he's for legal immigration, but that's not what he did in his first 4 years in office. So and more so, I think he is talking about making the climate incredibly inhospitable to immigrants in this country. And I think that's also going to put a damper on anyone wanting to come to this country who's got great skills and might be able to work somewhere else instead.
Wendy, how's that going to alter some of the demographic composition that we do see right now within the workforce and the risk there?
This is going to be felt differently across different geographies. So if you look at certain states that have relatively high concentration of immigrant populations, they're going to see very large changes potentially. Texas, Florida, California, New Jersey. These are some areas that are probably going to see relatively large reductions in labor supply, particularly in service sector industries. And then even going more concentrated, there are going to be certain geographies that have probably seen a nice bump in economic growth over the past few years because of increases in immigration. And as a result, restaurants has been expanding. Hair salons have been popping up to serve this population. And those very concentrated geographies are going to see a very stark decline in economic activity.
Can you help our audience link that to the day in and day out prices they might experience, especially given the focus on inflation that in some ways led to this election result?
It's going to be different by different products. So immigrants have a relatively large footprint in the agricultural industry, for example. So I would absolutely expect a reduction in immigration to result in higher prices of agricultural goods, of the kind of food that you buy at the grocery store. But on the flip side, I can imagine there being reduction in prices where immigrants are demanding fewer goods and services. So immigrants have to have a place to live, and fewer immigrants in this country is going to mean less demand for places to live. That could put downward pressure on rent prices. But then you have to think we're also reducing the labor supply of people who can construct those homes. So it's going to differ city by city and even block by block.
Wendy, as we wrap this up, I'm curious just in terms of your takeaways from day one of the Trump administration, this blueprint maybe that we do have of his approach to immigration, both legal and illegal immigration. What's the big takeaway for investors then at this point of the one thing that they need to keep in mind as we do work through so much of this uncertainty?
I think there's a huge amount of uncertainty for how people are going to react to the images that we no doubt see. For example, I found it incredibly heart-wrenching to see people who had been waiting 6 months for an appointment to apply for asylum, a completely normal and usual thing for someone to be able to do in wanting to come into the United States, and seeing that appointment canceled. To me, that was a heart-wrenching image. We are going to see more and more heart-wrenching images. I don't know how consumer sentiment then evolves as those images get displayed across our media. And that could affect consumer spending. It could affect how we feel about, supporting these policies. Some of these policies might get rolled back. I think we're in for a very bumpy ride.
All right, Wendy, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate your insight.
Yeah, thank you.